Wirt and the others find themselves in the back of a carriage of a freaked-out driver who's fleeing from the beast.
The beast is upon me!
That crazy driver's taking us way off course.
The driver's fear of what he can't even perceive is taking them further and further from where they want to be.
Further and further, drifting away from where I want to be.
Eventually, they come across an ominous-looking tavern where they devise a new plan to ask for directions and get back on the road to Adelaide's house. But Wirt is hesitant. He's concerned about the creepy clientele that may patronize the old place. Again, he assumes the worst of everybody. He first suggests that he stay outside, but then he realizes that would leave him alone in the dark.
Just go to the tavern!
Okay, but you asked for directions.
Fine, yeah, I'll do everything.
Wirt doesn't want to be the guy stuck talking to these strange people. He'd rather someone else do it. So with Beatrice taking the lead, he really doesn't have to risk much of anything. Well, as a twist of fate, the superstitious tavern keeper doesn't care much for bluebirds. So Beatrice is forced to exit, leaving it up to Wirt to get directions from this group of intimidating people. Beatrice and Greg, and I guess that frog too, are all depending on him. Wirt is forced to take on responsibility for the well-being of others. And though he doesn't care much for this obligation right now, we'll see his responsibilities grow from here over the course of his character arc, and yes, even this very chapter, until he becomes someone who runs toward responsibility instead of having it reluctantly thrust upon him. Though it was alluded to before, this story beat marks the true start of Wirt's responsibility arc. Among the patrons, Wirt finds that everyone in the tavern has a different role to play in society. The butcher, the baker, the midwife, master and apprentice, highwayman, everyone has a title. But Wirt doesn't see himself confined in this way.
I don't really like labels. I'm just sort of like myself.
Although it's fine to keep yourself open to new possibilities, especially at this young age, it speaks to Wirt's inability to commit to anything in fear of making a mistake. He doesn't really have anything that defines him. He's only thus far defined by what he doesn't do, like in this deleted scene.
Beatrice, this was your idea.
My idea was for you to commandeer this thing and to drive it to Adelaide's yourself.
I'm not gonna just hijack stuff. I'm not a hijacker.
Well, what are you, Wirt? What are you?
It's not canon, but they were thinking about this when they wrote it. When Wirt asks for directions to get to Adelaide's house, the tavern folk mistake her for his girlfriend, and they finally give him the label they think he deserves.
You're the young lover.
What? Young lover?
They seem way off base here. After all, Wirt isn't looking to hook up with Adelaide, he's just trying to get home. But remember that lost love that Wirt was lamenting about in the first chapter? Well, that was indeed a reference to the love of a girl he likes back at home, so maybe they're not quite as off base as Wirt thinks. The toy maker goes on to sing a song about all the work the people in the tavern get to do when there's a marriage in town. You could read this as a bit of silly commentary on the hollowness of consumerism, perhaps, but it's also a song showing that the happiness of a young couple can ripple through the community, giving everyone else purpose and the money they need to survive. Just by being happy with someone, Wirt could theoretically benefit an entire town.
There's work for all when little boys get married.
Or at least this tavern. When Wirt can finally get a word in edgewise, he lets the people know he's actually looking for directions to get out of here, and that's when he's labeled with a new title.
I know what you are. You're a pilgrim, a traveler on a sacred journey. The hero of no story.
You're the master of your own destiny.
A pilgrim.
This pep talk has perhaps awoken something inside of Wirt. He clearly likes the label of pilgrim. He wants to be the kind of guy who does what he wants and follows his desires. Wirt wants to have control over his life. He doesn't want to be blown around like a leaf in the wind or a lost ship upon a winding river. He doesn't want to be defined by nothing. He wants his journey to be his purpose. Among all that's occurred in the tavern this evening, we're now starting to see the love word of this chapter, xenia, or hospitality. Xenia is the love you show toward a guest as you give them food, shelter, entertainment, and companionship. Or love shown toward a host, giving them patronage, interesting tales of your journeys, as well as your respect and thankfulness. It's the trust we all give each other when we spend time with new people. Xenia is generosity among strangers. And although the people of the tavern seem a bit misguided here and there, their hearts are in the right place. Like when they pledge their talents and expertise to Wirt during the marriage song, or when they give Wirt the label of pilgrim, carrying him upon their shoulders, finally imbuing him with a sense of purpose. They even sing a rather informative song about the beast so that Wirt learns about how he too can be turned into an edelwood tree and burned for his oil if he were to succumb to the creature's dark treachery.
Don't believe his lies.
But perhaps the most intimate moment is when the apprentice gives Wirt this bit of advice.
You don't need directions, Pilgrim. You follow that compass inside your heart.
It feels kind of like a simple joke, poking fun at the uselessness of reductive cliches. But considering how Wirt eventually gets out of the unknown, which is not by any physical means, but by overcoming his own insecurities, this is probably the best advice he gets in the whole series. Suddenly, Wirt hears Beatrice scream from outside. He knows he has to step it up and help her, and his new hospitable companions cheer him on to save the day. It's the last push he needs to take the initiative and be the hero of the hour.
Oh boy, I guess I'm really doing this.
Wirt runs into the night and sees the woodsman standing over a fallen Beatrice. Wirt, as always, assumes the worst of everyone and fights the old man off to save the bird. He is a little confused at the moment, but at least he's being brave and decisive about it. Let's give him a point for character arc. No, too much. Perfect. Once Wirt escapes with Beatrice, we get a glimpse of the beast for the first time, and we get a better understanding of the burden of the woodsman, in that he must chop wood for lantern fuel or the soul of his daughter will be lost forever. In the end, Wirt saved his animal guide, who just knocked herself out getting scared by a weird shadow.
I wonder what that was.
Wirt even got directions from a talking horse, a horse that Beatrice spent the last hour with and just assumed it was a normal non-talking horse. Wirt actually did a better job than Beatrice this time. And this is the same guy who was content to be led around by a lost and aimless carriage driver. Now he's the one steering the horse, and with clear directions. In this chapter, we see Wirt's growth toward responsibility, to himself and to those around him. By just existing, he has an influence on other people, and he chooses if it's positive, like giving back to the community, or negative, like the highwayman who's probably killed people. In having accomplished his navigational goals, the pilgrim now has a better sense of purpose for his sacred journey. Wirt assumed the people in the tavern would all be creeps, but for the most part, they were very friendly to him. They were weirdos, but generally nice. You know, maybe...
Blah, 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 blah.
And it looks like they changed his whole perspective in just one evening. There's a lot you can learn from total strangers if you just get to know them, but if you want to get to know all the weird people around us without actually having to enter any creepy taverns, I'd have to recommend the show How To with John Wilson. I got a whole video lined up for you explaining the basic structure of an average episode. And it might not be the hero's journey we all know. Now, if you were in the tavern, what would your title be? Your occupation, like the butcher or baker, or something else like young lover or pilgrim? Let's turn the comments section into the Dark Lantern. I'll go first. I am the video boy. I'm not doing this.